Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jeep Journals, and today I'd like to talk about what happened a year ago today. So on today itself, I learned that my relative had passed away, and today is the beginning of the second day of my break from having food. So you hear an energy here. Partly it's because at this point in time in my life, excessive noise and agitation can kind of get to me. But what I fail to realize is that it's a bunch of children passing by, stopping by my vehicle, and they're just having a good day. They're not worried that someone has passed away. They're not worried that they still don't know where their father is at. They're not worried about these things. They're simply enjoying the day, and that's something that's hard for us to do. And so it's why I decided to not eat for a period of time. As far as how long that's going to go, I'm not sure. What I'm certain about is that it's been 1 year since this video has been looked at. And by that, what I mean is I'm going to upload this, and it's going to be posted 1 year from a year ago. So today you're seeing this. I believe it's November 23rd. Give me a second. 23rd, November 23rd of 2022. And the reason I was counting is because I don't know exactly what date it is. I'm not always looking at it. I could have looked at this invoice here, which was the main reason that I was going to tell you this story, and November 23rd. So I'm going to tell you this really interesting story about following the current and how monetary transactions can be greased, so to speak, in your favor when you don't fight the current. So yesterday, by chance, I received an email from my service department which said that there was a 30% off sale for Black Friday. And anyone who knows Black Friday knows that that's traditionally a shopping holiday where people try to buy a lot of things to pacify a lot of different needs. In this particular case, just by circumstance, even though it's really the same thing, I'm getting an oil change for basically a luxury off-roading vehicle, and so it's really the same thing. What I'm telling you is this story is funny because on one hand, I'm rage against the machine. We don't want, basically a bunch of Black Friday shoppers to buy things errantly. And at the same time, here I've bought so many things errantly that have led to this exact vehicle that you see me in. So as I'm watching the children go by and thinking, they're having a good day, they're not worried about someone that passed away. They're not thinking about monetary constraints, and they're just really living life, which is what I'm about to do. I'm about to go and take a walk. Again, I have not eaten since this past weekend, and it's it's not a huge deal. The first day it took me quite a bit of restraint to not eat anything. I developed a hunger headache late in the day, and I'm sure that as the days go by, I may experience other side effects that are related to just suddenly discontinuing the source of energy that we used to have relied on. And so I'm telling you this multi-threaded message, knowing that I typed out quite a great one to a friend of mine today, and knowing that I interacted with several people, knowing that I also formed a few visions of certain things along the way where I can see the anxiety in other people. And the reason I see the anxiety in other people is because I see it in myself. So, but here's where I don't see it. And this is what differs in some cases, which helps to remind me about looking at the whole picture and understanding it to the point where it's like I don't have these knee-jerk reactions to certain things. Because when we have knee-jerk reactions to certain things, we're going to call other people names. We're going to frown at people. We're not going to try to open the door. We're not going to try to be patient waiting with one another. And we're not going to be patient waiting on one another. So those are two different things. But when it comes down to it, this story, the reason it's being told a year from the fact is because at a certain point in time, I decided to stop. I just really needed to stop. Everything that I've been taught seems to be something that we practice without thinking about why we're preaching it. And what I mean is, if I walk in this park today and find an abundance of plastic all over the ground, maybe I don't want to celebrate with that same kind of product for this holiday season or any holiday season or even any non-holiday season. Traditionally, I might want to start a new thing. And to start a new thing, you have to do something new. In order to do something new, you have to really go out of your way to figure out what's new to you. It's hard to figure out what's new because in general, most of us who have been blessed to be watching something like this have been blessed to be able to do a lot of things that we've been able to dream about for the basic general purpose. And what I mean is, if someone who grew up never having known about airplanes never knew to think about flying, they may never have wanted to entertain those industries at all to begin with because they had not known they could do that. So if someone doesn't entertain the thought that they can think more joyfully, they may never have thought that they can do that. So as I humble myself before you and everybody, whether or not it's seen, the fact is I'm going without food for my own purposes, but basically it is because of the fact that there's just so much. There's too much. And the only way I can make a difference that I can think of is to not continue to add to the burden. So today, the way that transaction worked out for me monetarily in my favor was that basically I went to the dealership to go get an oil change, and while I was doing that, I had this email that I received yesterday that talked about a 30% off services or repairs, and I showed that to the person at the counter, and my representative said, well, this coupon doesn't apply to oil changes. It only applies to scheduled maintenance and recommended repairs. And so I had even tried to say, well, it's recommended on my screen. It says oil change recommended, So, but they said, no, it wasn't applicable to that. And I didn't really bother it because 30% doesn't matter. It's a great deal, but I still needed the oil change, and I personally wasn't a Black Friday participant, so I didn't necessarily deserve the 30% off. You understand what I'm saying? So what happened was I went to sit down, I looked at my phone, I looked at the message one more time, and I scrolled a little further, and it said, sure enough, this discount applies to oil changes as well, up to the first 5 quarts. Anything after that is normal price. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, when I'm presented with the receipt, then I'll go around and show this and say, hey, I want my 30% off, right? Not that it's a big deal. It's just, it's in the system, it says. But I wasn't going to be arrogant about it like I just pretended to be. I wasn't going to be selfish about it. It's just, it's applicable to the transaction that I'm exchanging right here. It's applicable. If there's an applicable exchange, I'm due my fair share, right? If it's written in, even if it's just by coincidence that I happen to be the 1 millionth subscriber to this channel, and so I won a prize or whatever, it's applicable. When it comes to the law of exchange, when it comes to the currency that we can exchange in this world as we know it, the impatient progress usually causes a short to the persons who are impatient, whether it's on the customer service side or the customer side or both sides. Patience usually works out to where neither the representative nor the person being represented are phased. It's just a system that blesses everyone involved. So while I was sitting there thinking, just momentarily after I thought, I'll just take this to the counter when they bring the receipt. While I was thinking that, and when I let it go, somebody came over, my representative, and told me, hey man, and he even lowered his voice because there were other customers. He said, hey man, and we had a pleasant exchange when we first had met each other. You know, we weren't meeting as business people, we're meeting as friends. And he comes over and he's like, hey man, I'm going to write you up at 50% off. I'm going to put in a coupon for you. Don't worry about it. And so I told him, thanks, you know, got the fist bump and everything. That was unexpected. Not only was it unexpected, but it absolutely, what's a good word for it? It's half off, energy-wise. I gave up half of my energy to get a full service change in this vehicle. Do you understand? And I didn't have to fight for it. Now, had I had to fight for it, then I would have gotten 30% off of the first 5 quarts, and everything else after that would have been full price. And it would have been some kind of hassle probably because of the transaction, how it had to be split. So when it comes down to it, following the law of energy is a thing that you can recognize. There are costs and then there are the outcomes. It absolutely takes a human cost to bring these services to where they need to be. There's a human cost for everything that was created that wasn't natural. Stickers, Velcro things, sunglasses, pendants. Now, this pendant's unique because I've talked about this in another episode. This washed into my hands when I asked for something that would be more sustainable. A fossilized piece of coral washed into my hands when I asked about it. The string, the bail that it's affixed to is made out of a guitar string, a busted guitar string, one of my busted guitar strings. I made the bail that holds this God-given gift that I had the beauty of sharing with you, shoring with you today, a year after the fact. Real change takes a very spiritualized approach that is inclusive of everything that we can possibly factor in. And once we are met with that discontent, like for an example, if I saw a crowd passing by me and I'm like, oh man, just coming here to get away from the noise. Why all the noise? Why is someone walking by with Bluetooth? Why is someone... Everyone has their own journey that they're experiencing in some way for that given moment in time, for whatever purpose it is. In my line, given that I can easily maintain this vehicle and drive to any side of any nation, I'm getting a little ambitious there, right? That I can drive to any side of the nation that I'm currently in, whatever it may be called, by the time you see this. By the time we all see this, huh? Whatever the circumstances for me, I've got all of my capabilities to do the things in wonder, like a child would, walking around. Wow, look at this. Check this out. You'd want to share that experience with a friend. And at a certain point, some friends may not care for those things the same way that you do. So you might find a bunch of rubbish strewn about the playground where we're all playing. So then we start to wonder, well, whose mess is it? And who cleans it up? What if we stop making a mess, first of all? Would that help the cleanup process? Not long ago, I had the opportunity to help with the cleanup process in another situation. And I might even incorporate a timeline that shows some of those photos so you have something else to see, to keep your mind educated. And in this timeline, I made the least amount of trips to go and get things to consume. I didn't even turn on the TV for the entire span of time that I was there, from start until right at the finish, when I finished all of the work that I felt like I was able to accomplish. And then I watched a concert. I watched a musical concert that was being streamed on the streaming service that I was able to use at this person's location. So in that opportunity, I got to listen to a lot of songs and just relax. There are people here relaxing by getting out that energy that these kids naturally have. What do our adults do to get out that energy? Do we really get out that energy, or do we sit down and shake our fists at the TV for a whole year, for another year? Do we continue to eat up the turkey knowing that we are what we eat? Do we do anything different knowing that our family has suffered a significant loss? There are so many things that can be rendered, and the responsibility of it is basically what it comes down to. Can we be responsible for the things that we are entrusted to? Am I maintaining this vehicle that I have? Am I maintaining my vehicle? Without maintaining my own vehicle, how do I expect to get around in it? So from the very onset, from the very beginning of noticing that there is an excessive level of consumption, perhaps the first thing we could stand to do is to stop and think about it. Are we standing 6 feet from someone else? Are we continuing to enter the personal space because we're agitated and we want somebody to acknowledge us? Hey, look at this. I've got this to show you. If we're just after the acknowledgement and we all want a prize for it, we're just going to generate more prizes to put on some other shelf until it goes into whatever wild space that you happen to encounter in your journey. And the wild space could be a concrete jungle, or it could be a pine needle covered forest floor. Recently, I was in Kings Canyon and I saw a snake crossing the road, a bull snake, or a corn snake, or a rat snake. It was a big snake. So I pulled over and put my flashers on and got out so that I could capture the moment. This is in the middle of nowhere. And right in the middle of nowhere, right where this snake was crossing the road, where I could show this video, right there was one of those little flossers. I've used them in the past. I thought they were convenient. I put them in the recycling bin. They may not have been recyclable. Whether they were recyclable or not, it's another errant fad that was marketed in just such a way that we were able to choose from that option to begin with, until it literally wound up everywhere. Fad diet. The only fad diet is to continue following what we've been following for so many generations. The only thing we can do to recognize difference is to experience difference. When have we experienced hunger, being separated from our parents? Let me tell you, I've been separated from my parents. And in almost all cases, it's because of our fathers. And I don't mean that with discontent or hostility. It is a simple observation which you can help refute. Again, this is going to be a year after the fact. And in the meantime, I'm still on my second day without having eaten any food. I'll continue these videos and I'll tell you exactly how this journey goes. But what I'm doing, it's not just a personal aspiration for myself. It's not. If it were, I would publish this right now and say, hey, look at me, look at me. This has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with everyone. When the scripture said, take this and eat it, this is my body. However you take that, what I take is, do we give reverence to that we're eating? Are we grateful? Are we grateful? Are we grateful? What is all this? How does this all tie together? Gratitude. If we're not grateful from something, for something, we're going to consume it until it dies without ever nurturing it, noticing it, ever. And in a lot of ways, that's what people are doing with one another, especially if those people don't have a source of nourishment that supersedes all of the nourishment that we thought we got from elsewhere. We don't just live on bread alone. We live on nourishment. My friend came over and told me, hey, I got 50% off for you. That was awesome. He didn't have to do it. When my friends and family tried to surprise me with whatever, they don't have to do it. When strangers do it, they especially don't have to do it. So when I see a bunch of children walking by, there's no rule that says that I have to or don't have to smile. There's only my own heart. And when my family continues to falter due to the health of the decisions, and as I looked over right out of a plastic bottle, the nourishing content, and here's this energy that I talk about. That's another person that I could have helped learn, that I probably can help learn to change their approach, if only I can change in my heart how I see that action. It's like the plane overhead. That's a plane load full of people just like you and I who are fulfilling their dreams. Whether the dreams are truly inspirational and inspired, or whether they're just it's part of what I have to do to make this paycheck. What if you gave up the notion of a paycheck and understood, by chance, 50% off. By chance, I've gotten free oil changes. By chance. For so many reasons. By chance, the gas pump I pulled up to was prepaid. By chance. And it's not just coincidence that we are here together watching this. It's not by chance. It's not by chance that we're crossing paths so closely with one another. And having the opportunity to bring peace to one another, or to sit idling, making more noise without ever finding any true guidance. By chance, things happen in ways where you can understand and appreciate what's being talked about. By chance, I decided to take a break from following the same exact patterns that our fathers continue to follow. By chance, I had an extreme headache last night that ended right around a certain time, right around that same time when by chance I suffered, our family suffered a great loss. By chance, you're seeing this a year after the fact, hearing what I'm talking about and understanding. We can bring peace to one another's life by bringing peace. If we're bringing additional tasks, additional things to sort through, additional chaos, we're not really helping one another in these great times of need when we can be achieving so much more easily. When we help one another, we magnify the work that we do. When we help one another, when I was helped with 50% off, that helped me to free up additional income, energy to share with someone else. And they're sharing with me in the form of, I've got a beautiful guitar in the works. I can hardly wait to play some music with it, to show my friends, my family, you who are watching this. You're my friends and my family. And I say that without any mistake. There's no mistake in what I'm saying. And you know it's true. The same way that you're hearing me is how I can easily hear you. The only difference in this span of the universe that we're going through right now is whether we are able to hear one another in person, no matter how each other looks, no matter how the illusion externally is reflected, no matter whether we can serve the servants or not. Are we servants? Are we picking up that trash on the trails? Are we adding to it? Do we continue to buy more of it, knowing that other people can't even afford it? Do we continue to think about hunger as an addiction? When we can do something and not use that abundance to help others, sometimes that's an addiction when we don't want to share. My stomach gurgled right then. It's true. And I know from experience that as I have discontinued any kind of consumption of food, somehow someone will come and offer me that food, even if they might need it more than I do. It's true. So for right now, as I continue to try and figure out where my father is, after he was moved to another place, and after my father's family continued to circulate a rumor that I had disowned my father, as I continue to look for my father, sometimes I don't feel as hungry. Do I physically suffer from that hunger? I told you I had a massive headache last night. Does anyone else suffer from these extremes in our family who might already be not in the best health? I don't know. I can tell you that by coincidence, so many things happened without me ever knowing what was in motion that led to the circumstances that, of course, have led to you seeing this today. How is it, by the way? Has anything changed aside from the level of chaos? Have we changed in our heart? It's hard to say. But anyway, these are the things that I think about when I see how easily children are able to smile, and how similar to even pets, and you know what I'm saying. I'm not demeaning our children. I'm not demeaning any entity. What I'm saying is, you can recognize compassion, you can recognize love, you can recognize emotion. You just have to pause and see it. And the only reason we will not pause to see it, like the branches on the trees waving behind me, even if we don't pause to see it, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But what it can mean sometimes is that trait might phase itself out. If we don't pause to hear the singing birds, might be phased out. The birds may never sing again for us. They may lose hope. They may stop eating. But they might stop eating because there's no food to eat. When that starts happening, that might have been a great alarm to have paid attention to. When someone like me, who is constantly in these areas of wilderness, can tell you that they're seeing anomalies, please help sound the concern. Please help resonate in a way that helps us to all be a little bit less worried. The first thing I can tell you is to stop adding to the pile of work. There are not many people who will tell you to consider doing this. Some people will say everything that they can think of to excuse you out of taking personal assessment, personal inventory. I'm not like that because I'm not selling anything. There's nothing to sell to bring someone back to health. The only thing that we're risking selling when we don't bring each other back to health is our very essence, our very being. When we want to nurture one another, we'll nurture one another. When we want to genuinely hurt one another because that thing is a threat to the comforts that we know, that's addiction. There's a very clear difference between the two. So again, I'm sharing this a year after the fact. The energy that I'm putting into it might come across still with a little bit of venom. I kind of like the sound of that. Ray Venom. I've been considering a new name for quite some time. And a venom doesn't necessarily need to be used for toxicity towards just healthy living cellular structures. Everything in nature can be used for many things. As some people know, even blood pressure medication has a snake venom derivative. With all of this in mind, when we think about what we like and don't like to persist in the wild, when we think about how we obtain our own cures, maybe nature should be ranked a little bit more ahead of schedule in terms of what we should be focusing our priorities on. Are those wildfires any less extreme, significant by now? I sure hope so. I've got mad ideas. They're not even mad. I've got happy ideas that I could share with my fellow children, adult children, that talk about all of the different ways that we can bring back together the sensible, sustainable ways to accomplish things. Whether that's by carpooling, whether that's by just basically maintaining our own vehicles from the start so that they don't get to that point where the engines have deteriorated. Maybe if we handle the merchandise with care so it doesn't get damaged in transit. Maybe if we handle ourselves as if we care about ourselves. got a gurgle on the stomach there. I do care for myself very much. What I'm doing sounds tough, whether it's my alter ego or, myself or whatever is listening that I'm saying. Did you hear that? Whatever's listening, this is going to make us more appreciative, for one. There are so many ways it can be said, but to appreciate something is to nurture it. So I'm nurturing myself right now. I've told you over and over about the absolute health benefits and as far as conservation and wellness and how they're tied together. And I can't really demonstrate it in any other way except to walk the walk. If I'm going to talk the talk, I've got to walk the walk. So, yeah, today's the second day going without, and considering all the different things that I've been met with, there's nothing that's really set me off to have become so hangry that I would lash out at someone and start punching them in the arm or the face or emotionally. There's nothing that would make me want to do that. The thoughts can come across that way, but I have my own heart in my own control. Not everyone does, it seems like. And there are some that think that they can go ahead and operate as if they have that same level of control. Doctors, lawyers, doesn't matter what specialists we claim to be. We're all the same. We can all do each other's skill set. We just would have had to just follow that path, change our trajectory. We can all do the same things as one another, barring certain limitations, of course. And in those limitations, we find that we'll exceed others at things that were unimaginable because we've refocused our energies. So if I refocus my energy from eating every day and going to the bathroom all the time and wondering, how I can sit down and eke away some kind of a reason to have another snack, if I can avoid succumbing to that level of intrusion of thought, then I don't have as much thought that's causing me to overlook that the children walking by are happy. And that even though we've lost a valuable member of our family, there are so many other children carrying on the legacy. And to learn with those who we admired would be the same as wanting to learn with the children of those who we admired. So naturally, when it comes down to it, we protect and nurture what we actually want to. And if we lavish a lot of hate and hostility and conflict, we might not ever get that 50% off of the cost. We might not ever get it waived to where we're permitted to talk with our Father. We may never have that. And the trade-off might be that in the real world, we might not be able to interact with one another anymore because some people will actively want to harm the chances of other people as soon as they know what someone's goals are. And sometimes they'll do it in the form of obfuscation by sharing a lot of information that never really answers any questions that are presented to them. They'll expect you to answer all of their questions, but they will never answer your questions. That's something that comes across quite frequently in the realm of those speeches about narcissism. And a lot of people who our narcissists will employ all of those tactics, but not until the end. And then they'll think about it, and then they'll have to lie about what's happening. Like they'll have to say that, oh yeah, so-and-so disowned their family. That's why we don't have them in the loop. That's why we don't have them in the conversation, even though someone might be their only child. So when it comes down to it, the aspect that I'm trying to describe to you here has nothing to do with my own interest in getting a personal gain out of this. At no point in time did I ever want my father's house, my grandparents' house. At no point in time did I ever want someone else's property like that. In every instance where someone has had something, I've been able to find something that was more suitable and applicable to me. In every case, when I talk about cars, yes, I enjoy sports cars and seeing them very much. However, if you've followed this channel at all, then you understand that I get off-road quite a bit. And when I had my Trans Am, I couldn't get off-road all the time. This vehicle that I'm in all the time happens to be able to get me down those roads that I would love to travel down, which is the road less traveled, which means I have less groups of airplanes going by while I'm thinking about those things that I'm thinking, that I want to remain focused on. I'm still able to focus with all of the challenging distractions that occur in these escapes. However, as with anybody else, the less interactions, external interactions that occur, the more likely we are able to focus on those things that we've been thinking about without getting sidetracked and going, oh man, I got distracted when they talked about this. Oh man, we'll always be able to retrain on this video was recorded a year ago at the middle of the second day when this guy just stopped eating. What comes next? Why was he doing it? Is it just for his blood pressure? Is his family aware of this? You know, so many weird things that you might question. The answers, there is no answer. Everyone's on their own personal journey, and we either are biased, I'll call it bigoted, or we're open to understanding that, yeah, we might have these traits. We might be narcissists ourselves. We might have all of the traits that we want to define, categorize, and try to prescribe out of somebody. Or we're just overlooking the roles that we were supposed to fill to begin with. If we are supposed to fill a leadership role where we're helping to share information that's actionable in a world where we can walk these trails right now and figure out how to put all those plastics in one-time use to an end, if we're able to do that and we're not able to generate the type of traction that it requires because of somebody's misconception that somehow all of this is not interrelated, then we'll communicate it again and again and again until the class understands. Until the class understands that we're all helping one another, we're never going to understand that, well, maybe the person who didn't have 100% of that energy to offer, maybe it was a gift to give them 50% off so that they could offer what they could offer. Maybe it was a gift since that person is not taking the corporate income and getting all the straws that come with the drinks, the flavored drinks, the sippy cup lids. And maybe somehow at least someone has stopped, even if it's for a short period of time, to further understand the things that are daunting more than just themselves. I've made a lot of requests to talk with a lot of people. I've been asked to write a letter to some people in order for them to write me a letter back. I've been told by third parties that the persons I've written letters to can't understand what I wrote. The only reason someone could not understand what I wrote is because they saw right away where the letter came from and had an opinion before the letter was even opened up. They understood the money that came with the letter. Cash money. Even our very own former leader of leaders received cash money from me. And it might have been a panel that sorted the things and made that disappear. I understand that. But the fact is, if we can understand cash money and cash a check, then we should be able to appreciate in return the source of income. We should be able to appreciate our employer enough to not just walk in at the last second to clock in. We should be able to appreciate our teammates, not to be able to walk in and just wait until the very starting time while you know your coworker is working overtime trying to get this problem resolved. Jump in, help. We should be able to help one another. Instead, in a lot of cases, for whatever reason, the more that we think about our own discomfort, the more we decide not to help someone else. Not even to have a very basic conversation with someone. If it's something that we can't withstand, like for an example, going to a place that has more people, walking on a trail with someone, sharing a car ride with somebody, if it's something we can't think about, going on a vacation with someone, if we can't think about can't even think about working with that person, there's a judgment. In some cases, the judgments need a simple talk through. Someone has to talk about these things. And if one person can't hear what's being said, sometimes they'll drive themselves out of the conversation without a work confinement. In other words, let's say you and your family have a discussion that maybe someone in an HR situation would moderate for you and a teammate. With the HR representative there, both parties will probably say things that are slightly different. It's not always the case. Without a representative there observing, though, at all, in some cases, at least one of the parties will go into an area that's completely different from the other person. The other person might have a genuine interest, a genuine concern, and then the person who doesn't have someone listening will go off the handle, throw things, yell, berate, hit, attack. They'll use any excuse to say that they can't hear the first person who has concern, whether it's a word that was said, whether it's a perceived look that was given, etc. It's almost like they need another person's validation to begin with. So why can't we have an inclusive conversation with other people when it comes to narcissism? It's because everyone has this trait and everyone's afraid to bring up things or to have things brought up. But when you're honest with who you are, when you're honest about the things that you're talking about, there's no separation. And so there is no conversation that you can be afraid of having. At those levels, that's where it becomes exceedingly challenging to have a full conversation. Not many people would want to do that with one another. That's too open, too raw, too much information about one another. Too much truth that can be leveraged, especially if one never wanted to share their truth. There are a lot of reasons that people try to hide. This particular video, airing a year after the fact, All you have to do is look back. Look back at the start, see what I was asking for, see how it got escalated in simple ways that had nothing to do with vilifying anybody, and understand that when people are being wronged and things need to be brought to attention, brought to light, there aren't really a whole lot of ways for a regular person who doesn't want to fight about it to make it happen. People can argue about all kinds of legalese. People can argue, with the key element being argue. People can argue about all kinds of things. But in the meantime, as I've mentioned quite freely, I have not disowned anybody in my family. And at the same time, my family has taken care of restructuring the house that my own direct relative burned down. Even though I would love to have been a participant in this process, I honestly don't feel like I had the free money to put into something that someone was going to be fighting over to begin with. So I'm not in that process. I'm not having to tie up my time to help restore someone else's home. I'm only given the time to restore my own home and the means that it takes to maintain my own persistence, which is not very much. I don't even have to eat, as I've said. I'm not saying I want to go without it for a whole year, but I'm saying I am a very simple person. Some people will go so far as to say they're a simple person and they need something. They need something to wake up. They need something to maintain this. They need something to feel that. They need something to entertain themselves this. There's a list. There's nothing I need. Everything that I've received, even the agitations, have been brilliant communications to my own self about the things that bring me joy. Even the agitations the pains that I'm having to go through about trying to even just know, how do I even get in touch with my own father? Last year around this time, this person was fighting me, trying to jump out of a car, trying to run across a freeway, robbing a convenience store. 6 different officers had to help to get him into the hospital to get this temporary admission because no one else knew what to do. He would tell me something when no one else was listening, and then he would act like a completely sober person. It's like a possession. A lot of people will say that I'm airing laundry, but this is not laundry. This is a part of a process. This is a part of a channel for friends and family. And if you're my friends and family, you understand whether or not you're, blood or whatever, a chosen one, whatever we want to separate ourselves out with. We're friends and family. Everybody, even the people who haven't watched this, are friends and family. We just don't recognize one another because of certain conformities that we think are intrusive upon our own rights. In this free country where I don't even have the right to talk with my own father because of the relatives that I have who are helping to propagate this illness, in my family, because of this, and because a percentage, just as a base sample, because a percentage are in the realm of politics and supposed service people, because of this, I want to bring to light that just because we have a degree in some kind of conversational linguistics does not mean anything when it comes to seeing through what's right and what's wrong. The real test is time. Time will prove over and over the rightful heirs of everything. Whether it's property, whether it's fruit trees, whether it's the health, the very health that we share. But there are no bonds that can keep what is meant to be together from being together. There's no bonds that can hold things apart that are supposed to be together. It's just a matter of time and the currency that goes around, you know? It's not until you look at your friend in the eye and say, hey, I got you 50% off, man. You know, it's not until you do what you can do to bring joy to one another. It's not until then that the true currency begins to reign. So there are a lot of different things that I covered in this segment. The first and foremost thing that I want to cover is that this is halfway through day 2 of only having water, a water fast. And I'm going to go walk these trails. I don't know how far I'm going to go. I know that the weather is pleasant. It's pleasantly cool. The sun is warm. I'm starting to break a sweat because I've been sitting in this enclosed vehicle for a long time. And I'm about to get outside and feel the sun on my skin. Feel the sun on these black clothes that I wear. It's one of my favorite. I've thought of Ray Black for a last name. I'm not really sure. What I do know is that by the time you see this, whether my name has changed or not, I've changed. We all have the chance to change daily, minute by minute. We all have the chance to have compassion. We all have the chance to experience love. And we all have the chance to recognize it when it's right in our face. You know, whether we avert our gaze, whether we make eye contact and say something, whether we say something in the total opposite spectrum of what was levied at us. These are all things that are up to our own consideration and that help either to bring about positive change in the world or the slow, sometimes fast, unsettling passing away of life that could be nourished better, more responsibly, more sustainably, without slaughtering any lives for the purpose of enjoying those comforts that we oftentimes could go without, even for a period of time, just on the mere chance that it might help someone else out. For me, I know this is going to help someone else out. Someone else out there is listening. They've been listening for almost an hour. Yes, you've been listening for an hour. And that's an hour that hopefully you weren't picking up something else, doing something else that was not constructive. Hopefully this hour that you're coming up on will be the hour of power for you. I remember seeing some presentations like that. I've seen a lot of things. I've had a lot of luck to have witnessed so many things, from the Pope visiting San Antonio way back when, to my favorite rock band from whom the fan club told and banned me because I shared music on their site, all the way to this. This is an experience on its own. I mean, I never thought it would get to where it was going. And I saw the moment there was an uptick, and I knew the moment that I was just steps away from completing the beginning of the next phase of what was coming. And I knew it was all possible. The only thing that I was missing was just one fan. And so to change that the whole perspective, the only thing different is I became my own fan. People have asked me for a long time, you must like to hear yourself talk. I really don't. I'd like to have more time to make this music and show you the wildlife that I was able to show you when it was ever abundant. I'd like the opportunity to tell you that wellness and conservation go hand in hand. I'd like the opportunity to have seen my father and said, hey, look, this can work for you too, not just the band. I would like to share my humor in a way that brings you some joy, so that when I'm walking by, if you see me smiling and talking with someone, you catch a little bit of that smile. You know, there are so many things that are contagious: laughter, smiles, love. So, until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.